My phone rang at 3:07 in the morning, and the name on the screen was Mom. My mother had been dead for 2 years. I stared at the screen until my hands went cold. My first thought was that I was still asleep, that this was one of those dreams where your brain plays tricks with the people you miss the most. But the phone kept ringing, buzzing against the nightstand, lighting up the dark room in short cold flashes. I picked it up. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me needed to hear her voice one more time, even if it wasn't possible, even if it made no sense at all. There was no voice on the other end. Just static, and underneath the static, a sound I would recognize anywhere, 3 soft knocks, the exact rhythm my mother used to tap on my bedroom door when I was a little girl and she wanted to check if I was still awake. Knock. Knock knock. Then the line went dead. I sat up in bed shaking, the wedding dress hanging on my closet door glowing faintly in the moonlight, 6 hours away from becoming the most important dress I would ever wear. And somewhere in the pit of my stomach, a feeling I couldn't explain told me that something about tomorrow was wrong. Before I go any further, if stories like this keep you up at night wondering what you would have done, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments what time it is right now where you're watching from. Now let me take you back to where this all began. My name is Rachel and Whitfield. I'm 30 years old, and up until that night, I believed I was about to marry the man of my dreams. His name was Marcus Delgado. We met 4 years ago at a mutual friend's dinner party in Austin, Texas, back when I was still grieving my mother's passing and barely eating, barely sleeping, barely functioning as a human being. Marcus was patient with me in a way no one else had been. He sat with me through panic attacks. He learned how I took my coffee without asking twice. He remembered the anniversary of my mother's death every single year and always showed up at my door with white lilies, her favorite flower, without me ever having to ask. Everyone loved him. My father called him the son he never had. My coworkers said I was lucky. My therapist, cautious as she usually was about relationships, once told me that Marcus seemed like a genuinely rare kind of good. I believed all of it. I believed it completely. After my mother passed, I inherited 2 things from her, a modest but well-located commercial building downtown that she had spent 30 years paying off, and a life insurance policy worth $400,000 that I had never touched, because spending it felt like erasing the last thing she'd given me. I kept both quietly. Marcus knew about them, of course. We didn't keep secrets. Or at least, that's what I thought. The morning of the phone call, I lay awake until sunrise, replaying those 3 knocks over and over in my mind. Knock. Knock knock. It was such a small, specific thing that I couldn't shake it. My mother had done that every single school night of my childhood. There was no way I imagined the rhythm. I told myself it was probably some prank call, some glitch, some coincidence with a recycled number. But at 5:45 a.m., unable to lie there any longer, I got up, got dressed in jeans and an old sweatshirt, and did something I couldn't fully explain even to myself. I drove to Marcus's office. It wasn't scheduled. Nothing about it made sense given that my hair appointment was at 8 and my bridesmaids were arriving at 9. But I told my sleeping fiancé's assistant, who I happened to know started her shifts absurdly early, that I'd left something important in Marcus's office the week before and needed to grab it before the day got busy. She let me in without a second thought, because everyone at that firm treated me like family. Marcus worked at a mid-sized financial planning company, the kind that manages retirement accounts and estate planning for local families. His office was neat, orderly, exactly like him. I wasn't snooping. I told myself that the entire time. I was simply sitting at his desk waiting for 8 o'clock to come, watching the sun rise orange over the parking lot, when his computer screen, left unlocked from the night before, lit up with a calendar reminder. Finalize Whitfield estate transfer paperwork, before ceremony. My own last name, staring back at me from a folder I had never seen, on a desk that belonged to the man I was marrying in 6 hours. I don't remember deciding to open it. My hand moved before my brain caught up. Inside the folder were documents I didn't recognize, a durable power of attorney form with my signature on it that I never remembered signing, a beneficiary change request for my mother's life insurance policy naming Marcus as primary beneficiary, and a property transfer draft for the downtown building, already filled out, waiting only for a notarized signature dated for that very afternoon, right after the ceremony, at a small office 2 blocks from our reception venue. My stomach dropped somewhere near the floor. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Married couples combine finances. Estate planning is normal. Marcus worked in this field, of course he would want to help me organize things. I almost closed the folder and walked away, almost let 4 years of trust talk me out of what I was looking at. Then I saw the sticky note stuck to the inside cover, in handwriting I recognized instantly because I had seen it on birthday cards and grocery lists for 3 years. Sign before the honeymoon. Don't let her read the fine print. She trusts you too much to check. I sat frozen in his chair for what felt like an hour but was probably only 90 seconds. My whole body had gone numb, the way it does right before a car accident, that strange calm before the world tilts sideways. And then, almost on autopilot, I heard voices coming down the hallway. Marcus's voice, and his mother's. I ducked behind the open door of the small supply closet across the hall, my heart slamming so hard I was certain they'd hear it before they saw me. Everything's ready, his mother, Diane, was saying. The notary confirmed for 2 o'clock. Right after the toast, before anyone's had too much champagne to notice you two slipping out. She won't notice anything, Marcus said, and his voice had a lightness to it I had never once heard directed at me, a kind of casual confidence that made my skin crawl. Rachel doesn't read fine print. She just signs where I tell her to. She trusts me with everything. And the insurance policy? Already switched over. I filed the beneficiary change through the online portal last week. She'll never check it. Why would she? She thinks I love her. Diane laughed softly, the same warm laugh I had heard at every family dinner for the past 3 years, the laugh that used to make me feel like I belonged. You do love her, don't you? At least a little? I love what she has, Marcus said. That building alone is worth $600,000 at today's prices. Add the insurance money, and we clear the business debt with room to spare. I'm not a monster, Mom. I'll be a good husband. I'll take care of her. It just so happens that taking care of her also takes care of us. My knees nearly buckled against the metal shelving. 4 years. 4 years of white lilies and remembered coffee orders and sitting with me through panic attacks, and it had all been a slow, patient, calculated approach to my mother's money. And if she ever finds out? Diane asked, quieter now. She won't, Marcus said. By the time she'd think to question anything, everything will already be legally combined. There won't be anything left to find out. I don't know how long I stood in that closet after their voices faded down the hall. Long enough for my legs to stop shaking. Long enough for something inside me to shift from heartbreak into something colder, sharper, and far more useful. I pulled out my phone, and with trembling fingers, I opened the voice memo app, and I began recording everything I could remember while it was still fresh, word for word, before it had the chance to blur. Then I called the only person I trusted without question. My mother's longtime attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Patricia Alvarez, had handled my mother's estate for over a decade and had warned me gently, more than once, to keep my accounts separate before the wedding. I had brushed her off every time, certain she simply didn't understand how good Marcus was. She picked up on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. Rachel? It's not even 6. What's wrong? I need you to freeze every account tied to my mother's estate right now, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. The insurance policy, the building, all of it. Today. Before 9 o'clock. There was a pause, and then the sound of her sitting up, suddenly wide awake. Tell me what happened. I told her everything, the recording running the whole time as proof, my voice cracking only once, when I repeated the words I love what she has. Consider it done, Patricia said. I can have an emergency hold filed within the hour. Rachel, are you still going through with this wedding? I looked at the folder still sitting open on Marcus's desk, at my own signature forged onto a power of attorney form I had never seen before that morning, at the sticky note in his mother's handwriting. I have somewhere to be, I said. But it's not what everyone thinks. By 8:30, I was sitting in the salon chair getting my hair pinned into soft curls while my bridesmaids chattered around me about seating charts and centerpieces, completely unaware that the bride beside them had spent the last 2 hours uncovering a financial conspiracy involving her own fiancé and future mother-in-law. I smiled when I was supposed to smile. I laughed when someone made a joke. I let them believe every second was ordinary. Marcus texted me at 9. Can't wait to see you today. 6 years from now we'll look back and laugh about how nervous we both were. I stared at those words for a long time. 6 years from now. He was already imagining the timeline of what he'd take from me. I typed back a single word. Me too. The lie came easier than I expected it to, the same way it must have come easily to him for the last 4 years. At 11, Patricia called to confirm the freeze was in place, every account, every policy, every transfer request, locked down tight, untouchable without a court order. At 11:30, I called a second person, someone I hadn't spoken to in years but who I knew, without a doubt, needed to hear what I'd found. Marcus's older brother, Tomas, who had cut contact with the family 3 years earlier after a bitter falling out over money he'd once loaned Marcus and Diane that was never repaid. I had always wondered about the silence between them, had always assumed it was some petty family squabble no one wanted to discuss around me. Now I understood it might be something else entirely. He answered on the 4th ring, wary. Rachel? It's been a while. I know, I said. I'm sorry to call like this, today of all days. But I think you might be the only person who'll believe what I'm about to tell you. By the time I hung up, Tomas had agreed to come to the ceremony. Not as a guest. As a witness. The venue was a restored barn just outside the city, string lights woven through the rafters, 200 chairs arranged in soft rows facing an arch dressed in white roses. Everyone I had ever loved was seated in that barn, dressed in their best, waiting for the woman they thought they knew to walk down the aisle and marry a man they believed was perfect for her. I walked down that aisle at exactly 2 o'clock, on my father's arm, my recording saved in 3 separate places just in case. Marcus stood at the altar in his charcoal suit, smiling the smile that had once made my chest ache with how lucky I felt. Now it made my stomach turn. The officiant began the ceremony. Vows, promises, the same words spoken at 1,000 weddings before this one. And then came the line every ceremony includes and no one ever expects to actually matter. If anyone here has reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now, or forever hold your peace. I raised my own hand before anyone else could. A ripple of confused laughter moved through the crowd, the kind of nervous laugh people give when they think a bride is making a joke at her own wedding. I have a reason, I said, and my voice, to my own surprise, did not shake. Marcus's smile faltered. Rachel, what are you doing? I turned to face the 200 people who had come to celebrate a wedding that was never going to happen, took the small speaker I had hidden inside my bouquet, and pressed play. His voice filled the barn, clear and unmistakable. She'll never check it. Why would she? She thinks I love her. Then his mother's laugh, warm and familiar to everyone in that room, followed by the words that made the entire crowd go silent. I love what she has. That building alone is worth 600,000. Diane's face went white in the second row. Marcus lunged toward me, his composure cracking for the first time in 4 years. Turn that off. You're twisting this completely out of context, this isn't. Then explain it, I said, holding his gaze. Explain the power of attorney with my forged signature. Explain the beneficiary change you filed without telling me. Explain the notary appointment booked for 2 o'clock today, right after our toast. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Behind him, near the back of the barn, I watched Tomas step forward, the crowd parting slightly to let him through. I can explain the rest, Tomas said, his voice carrying across the silent barn. Because he tried something similar with my ex-wife 3 years ago. That's why I stopped speaking to this family. I just never had proof. Rachel does. The gasps that followed felt distant, like they were happening to someone else, in some other barn, at some other wedding. I looked at my father, at my bridesmaids, at 200 stunned faces, and finally, at Marcus, standing frozen at the altar in his charcoal suit with nothing left to say. "I came here today to marry someone I trusted with my whole heart," I said, loud enough for the entire barn to hear. "I'm leaving as someone who finally trusts herself." I set the bouquet down gently on the altar, turned, and walked back up the aisle alone, past every person who had come expecting a wedding and instead witnessed the truth arrive precisely on time. I made it almost all the way to the parking lot before someone called my name. I turned, expecting my father, or one of my bridesmaids in tears. Instead I found my mother's oldest friend, Louise, a woman I hadn't seen in nearly a year, standing near the barn doors with an envelope clutched in both hands. "I've been holding on to this," she said, her eyes wet, "for longer than I ever thought I'd need to. Your mother gave it to me the year before she passed. She told me to keep it safe until the day came when you needed to hear her voice again." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single folded letter in my mother's familiar handwriting. "Rachel, if you're reading this, it means something told you to slow down before you gave your whole life away. Trust that feeling. I raised you to listen to your own instincts, even when the world tells you everything looks fine. I love you more than any house or policy could ever measure. Whatever you decide it because it's right for you, not because it's easier for someone else. Love, Mom." I stood there in the parking lot in my wedding dress, mascara running down my face, and for the first time all day, I let myself cry without holding anything back. The 3 knocks from that 3 a.m. phone call finally made sense. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't my imagination. It was, somehow, in whatever way we're never meant to fully understand, my mother making sure I was awake before it was too late. 8 months later, I still own the downtown building. I lease the ground floor to a small bakery now, the kind of place with flour on the windows and the smell of cinnamon drifting onto the sidewalk every morning. The insurance policy sits untouched, exactly as my mother left it, exactly as it should have stayed the whole time. Marcus tried calling for the first 2 months. I never answered. Some numbers deserve silence. Patricia still handles my accounts. Tomas and I still talk occasionally, 2 strangers bonded by a truth neither of us wanted to carry alone. And every year, on the anniversary of that 3 a.m. phone call, I buy myself a bouquet of white lilies and set them on the kitchen counter, not because I miss the man who used to bring them, but because I finally understand who taught him to. People sometimes ask if I regret walking away from my own wedding in front of 200 guests. I never hesitate when I answer. I didn't lose a wedding day. I got my mother's last warning, delivered exactly when I needed it most, and I finally learned to trust the voice inside me before anyone else's voice could talk me out of it. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss a story like this again. Drop a comment below and let me know, would you have done what Rachel did? See you in the next story.